Alright, like, click, subscribe, do all that. You already know what time it is. It's Netflix time. This movie's called Oxygen. After waking up in a cryogenic unit, Liz fights to survive and remember who she is before her oxygen runs out. So it's a sci-fi movie that just came out. It's about an hour and 41 minutes long. Spoiler alert, let's get it. So it starts off with this lady waking up out of her cocoon, and she starts having these flashbacks to when she was in the hospital. When she wakes up, she's talking to this genetic program named Milo, and at this point she has no idea who she is or where she's at. But now that she's woken up, she's being told that she has 35% of oxygen left in the tank that she's in, or what they would call a cryogenic box. So as she's spazzing out, she's getting flashbacks to her former life. To open the box, she needs the cryogenic codes, but she hasn't been able to talk to anybody other than Milo. Then she has a flashback about this guy. Then she looks at herself through an Omicron stasis unit. Because nothing seems to be going her way, she's having flashbacks about her suffocating to death. She tried to break open the pod, but then they gave her an electric shock. Then she somehow made a phone call to the general. The general was like, alright, we're going to help you out the best we can. We're going to get you up out of there. He told her he was going to trace the call to try to figure out where she was at so they can get her out of there. Once he told her the cryosatellite module, which hers goes by Omicron 267. The general's doing everything we can, or so we think. Then she does a background search and finds out she's actually Elizabeth Hansen. Turns out she's actually a doctor in cryogenics. Milo monitors everything about her, from her vitals to her stability, stuff like that. So she's getting frustrated at the general because he hasn't come in time and she only has a certain amount of time. Her heart rate starts going up and Milo keeps asking if she needs a sedative. It almost gives her one, but she ends up dodging it. Then she starts having flashbacks about trees and stuff. Then she has a flashback about this guy doing medical research who we now figured out his name is Leo Ferguson. So apparently she was highly popular with bio research. Then we get a flashback to the hospital with this moving alien. It's like, what the fuck? But every now and then she starts seeing rats. And we think she's just going insane because her oxygen is getting low. But it turns out it was just one of the things that she used to work on. Then she's trying to make calls to anybody, but the connections get lost. Then we find out that Leo Ferguson is actually her husband. She tries to make calls to him, but then another lady picks up the phone and she hangs up on her. Then she starts seeing rats again. And before you even ask, yes, this entire movie is done with inside this cryptonic box. So she feels like she's pretty much running out of options. She thinks the general's lying to her. We get a flashback with them together. Now when she looked at the information earlier, she saw her with her husband Ferguson on pictures together. But now when she's going back through the pictures, it's just her. So has she been hallucinating this whole time, or is somebody trying to cover up information? Then we get a flashback to Leo on a boat. Then we get a flashback to her and her mom. Now her mom is named Alice, but they're trying to convince her that's not her name. Then she gets a flashback to her husband playing the piano. And he doesn't look good at all. He's got splotches on his head. He's losing his hair. And he's basically been sick. She's been trying to figure out a way out and check on her status. Meanwhile, the oxygen is at like 20% now. And she's being told if you want to go back to hyperspace with less than 2% of oxygen involved, there'll be no way to revive her when she gets back up. Or won't be enough oxygen to revive her. Then she finds out this is all a military project. She thinks that she put herself in this cryogenic container. Then she gets a call from this chick named Gracie. She tells her everything the military's been telling her is a lie. Now she gets the codes, but Gracie and Milo tell her it's not a good idea to use the codes to open the door. Then we get a flashback of her husband. He has some type of disease. Then Gracie hits her with a fucking bombshell. She tells the military was just stalling for time because you're not even on the planet anymore. You're in outer space. What in all of the fuck? At this point, she is literally 40,000 miles away from the planet Earth, which then Milo confirms. She thinks she's been asleep for 3 days. She's actually been asleep for 12 years. They tell her she's actually part of a mission when they land on another planet or life force. They say the mission was actually sponsored by Elizabeth Hansen. They tell her to either go back into cryogenic stasis or let the oxygen run out and you could just die. And at this point, her oxygen is at 6%. So she makes a call. She's actually able to get through to her mom and tells her how much she loves her and all that. Her mom just thinks she's in a car, and I think she actually has Alzheimer's or something. Then she's been told Leo actually died a long time ago. So her morale is pretty much all the way down at this point. So basically this circle thing is a shell covering. It's not really showing her the actual outside of the box. So she asks for the cover to be released, and what it shows us is dead bodies in a vacuum space. In this circle there are about 9,000 other cryogenic chambers. And outside of that, she is looking right at the Earth, which they told her over 1 million people perished. Yes, she is literally in space with a bunch of other pods. Then after that, with searching, she actually figured out one of the pods does have her husband Leo Ferguson in it. And yes, he's still alive. Or so she thinks, until she actually discovers the project, and then she discovers who really put her up there. Turns out it was the real Elizabeth Hansen. And why do I say the real Elizabeth Hansen? Because she finds out her and all the other pods are actually clones. So she's been experiencing all these memories and visions and they're not even hers. So after accepting that fact, she realizes that she has 4% left of oxygen. Then this critical mass alarm starts going off and she had to take the needle out of her foot because it was going to give her a lethal injection. Once she got that out the way, she's basically now at 2% oxygen. Then she starts seeing a bunch of rats, which we now concur is highly impossible to happen. Because she's in outer space. She attaches all the stuff back to her head to go to hypersleep because she ain't going out like no bitch. Then she sends out one last message because she won't be able to wake up because there's no oxygen left in there. It tells her husband or a clone husband or whatever like that she loves him, and then it stitches her back up. As the pod starts floating around the moon, it goes into hyperspace, and I think it just goes dumb fast. Shoot! Disappears dumb fast. Last thing we see is a vision of Leo Ferguson. I'm not even sure if it's a clone or they're on a different time space or a different planet. We see him and Lizzie all hugged up looking out into the horizon. And that's the end of the movie. Yeah, so it's like one of those movies that just takes place in one location. Yeah, like that one movie. Remember the movie called Phone Booth back in like 2002? Oxygen on Netflix. Check it out. Like, click, subscribe, do all that. You already know what time it is. Slick these, y'all, easy, best. Big. Could have goddamn slogan.